In the spring of 1200 BCE, a young girl named Nefertari stood trembling in the courtyard of the Temple of Amun at Karnak. Around her, priests moved with ritual precision, scraping away every strand of her long black hair until her scalp was bare. She was only 9 years old. 3 days earlier, her father, a minor official drowning in debt, had delivered her to the temple. Unable to repay what he owed in grain or silver, he offered his child instead. Nefertari didn't understand that she wasn't returning home. Her father promised her a great honor, a life of serving the gods, and urged her to be proud. But when the cold bronze blade grazed her scalp, she began to cry. An older priestess struck her. "Servants of the god, do not weep," she snapped. "You have no tears now, no name. You belong to Amun." That moment marked the beginning of a 43-year life inside the temple. A life of confinement, obedience, and exploitation wrapped in the language of holiness. And Nefertari was not an exception. She was one of thousands of girls and women who lived and died inside Egypt's temples, praised in inscriptions, yet imprisoned in reality. They bore titles like Wife of the God, Pure One, Singer of the Sanctuary, sacred names that concealed a system built on control and suffering. The temples left behind dazzling walls full of divine imagery. But those stones never tell the other side, the lives taken, shaped, and erased behind their gates.
Today, when people hear of Egyptian temple women, they often imagine graceful priestesses in white linen performing serene rites. That image is a mirage. The word virgin in temple language didn't refer to moral purity. It meant ritual purity, a condition defined entirely by priests and enforced through strict control of the women's bodies, movements, and personal choices. Most of the girls never volunteered for this life. Many were given as offerings by families who sought divine favor or simply needed fewer mouths to feed. Others were handed over as payment for debt, just like Nefertari. Temples weren't only spiritual centers, they were economic powerhouses. They owned land, lent resources, and collected tribute. When people couldn't pay, their daughters often paid the price. Still others came from beyond Egypt. Soldiers brought back captives from Nubia, Libya, and the Levant, including children who were absorbed into temple service with no hope of return. Some were as young as 8 years old.
Once a girl entered the temple, her former life ended. First came the purification ritual. She was washed repeatedly with water mixed with natron, supposedly to cleanse her spiritually. In truth, it was an invasive ceremony meant to inspect and exert control over every aspect of her physical being. Resistance was said to anger the gods, leaving the child terrified and compliant. Next came the shaving of the head, stripping away vanity, identity, and individuality. Then the renaming. Her birth name, the link to her family, was forbidden, replaced with a temple name. Nefertari became Nefert-Nebet, beautiful is the lady. Her old self was declared dead. Finally came the most symbolic ritual, the divine marriage ceremony, where each girl was declared a bride of the deity she would serve. She was dressed in fine linen, adorned with jewelry, and brought to the statue of the god. Priests, speaking as the deity, proclaimed her bound to divine service forever. To the temple, it was a sacred bond. In reality, it was legal ownership. A girl married to a god could never marry a man. She belonged to the institution until she died.
Daily life inside the temple was rigid and suffocating. The women woke before dawn in crowded dormitories under constant supervision. Privacy did not exist. After washing, they dressed in plain white robes and were assigned hours of labor, weaving,
grinding grain, preparing offerings, or cleaning sacred spaces. Silence was mandatory. Speaking without permission brought punishment. Nefertari's only comfort was another girl, Takayat. They whispered to each other while weaving, until one day an overseer caught them. Takayat was beaten and taken away for 3 days. When she returned, she never spoke again. 2 months later, she vanished. The overseer said she had been returned to the gods. Everyone knew what that meant. Surveillance was constant. Contact with families was forbidden. Inspections for purity were frequent and deeply humiliating. Girls learned the only survival strategy available: to disconnect emotionally and endure. Resistance, when it appeared, was crushed swiftly.
Some temple women carried the title wife of the god. In official inscriptions, they participated in sacred unions, ceremonies meant to reenact divine myths. But these inscriptions used symbolic language that conceals what actually occurred. High-ranking priests claimed to act as the physical representatives of the gods during these rites. Wrapped in divine garments, they declared themselves conduits of the deity and required total submission. Girls raised from childhood to believe their bodies belonged to the gods had no defense against such authority. They were told refusal was blasphemy, a crime against the divine order itself. At 14, Nefertari was chosen for her first such ritual. She was brought into the inner sanctuary, heavy with incense, and told she would receive the god's blessing. When she hesitated, she was warned that disobedience would bring disaster. What happened next was recorded in temple documents as a successful sacred union. To Nefertari, it was a violation disguised as holiness. Some women became pregnant. Children born from these unions were declared blessed and raised within the temple system. Daughters trained for service, sons groomed to become priests. The cycle reproduced itself. Nefertari gave birth to a daughter. She cared for her for 3 years before the child was taken away to begin her own conditioning. Nefertari saw her only at a distance, never allowed to speak to her again. Those who dared to resist faced brutal consequences. One of the harshest was called dedication to the desert, being abandoned outside the walls without food or water. It meant a slow, agonizing death. When a woman named Renut Ma once shouted that the priests were not gods and the temple was not holy, she was immediately seized. Every woman was forced to watch as she was led into the blazing desert. The next morning, they were brought to see what remained of her. Her death served as a warning to all. But small rebellions survived. Messages hidden in woven cloth, glances exchanged during prayer, or secret carvings on forgotten stones. Many temple women died unknown, buried in unmarked graves, erased from memory. Nefertari died at 52. Her daughter, now an adult servant of the same institution, was forbidden to mourn. Some women, however, left their final truths behind. Mutamuya, the Nubian girl taken long ago, scratched a message into a wall 2 days before her death. I came from beyond the first waterfall. My mother was Manitori. I remembered her voice. This life was not my choice. If you find this, know that I lived. Her words still whisper through time. They remind us that beneath the grandeur of Egypt's temples stood thousands of silenced lives, women who endured a lifetime of suffering behind sacred walls. Now you know their story, and once you know, you cannot unsee it.